Okay, 3, 2, 1. Alright, welcome to the second episode, guys.
Okay. Thrilled.
We are very serious.
Welcome. Ich weiß nicht mehr was. Austria. Austria.
You made it a second time. Shout out. And they lost. Welcome.
Welcome to episode number 2 of German Thinking.
Yeah, episode number 2. We are rolling live from Berlin and
Karlsruhe.
yeah, we now have to do the remote edition because, as mentioned, we're living in different cities. So we're making everything possible in our power to still give you the content that you need. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. Depends.
But we did hear that some people on this planet listened to the first episode. Just want to give a little shout out. We got some great feedback for the last episode. My favorite one was, this is cringe. Thanks, guys. Let's just start off with describing what I see, okay? I'm sitting here with Jan on my phone, and he has a red wine.
Guys, we recently made like 5 introductions, but we have to tell you a lot. There's so much on the schedule. You will receive an intro to the German history.
Basically, we just visited a mutual friend in Vienna, or friend from Jan from studying in Karlsruhe, who now moved to Vienna. And in Vienna, we were like, this is like a parallel universe of Germany. They have so many signs. They are even stricter. They are even more focused on the economy. Uh-huh. Like there were some things that from our perspectives had weird, crazy similarity to what we experienced in Germany. So we were like, what is actually the history? How is it connected? And as I am certified in the topic of the German unity, certified with my A levels.
That's how much effort we put into research, valuable data.
Yeah.
I was like in the physics course, and Leonie was in the history course, and I wouldn't consider myself as somebody who knows something about physics. And Leonie considers herself to know something about history because she made her A levels in history.
That's such a cap.
But that's okay, and that's okay. And
no, Jan is just jealous.
Yeah, I am, because I had to put so much fucking effort and brain cells into this.
And I just had a really good history teacher. Shout out. And he had a very nice way of explaining this topic. So now I want to pass the knowledge. But of course, I'm not a historian. So where should we start off the story? I don't know.
Everything begins with Adam and Eva. Then there was a lot of weird sexual things. Few billion people came out of those 2 people. This is such a fake news by the church that Adam and Eva were the first. They told it as a fact. You know, I was in a Christian kindergarten. Once a week we went to church, and there were the guys telling us Adam and Eva were the first humans on Earth. And everything you see is based on Adam and Eva. But this is such a fake news because then everybody wouldn't be here or would sit in a wheelchair here.
Anyways, I think the real story goes somewhat like some apes developed and their brain got bigger and they figured out how to make fire, and then suddenly there was the Roman Empire.
This sounds stupid as well.
There was a lot more going on, but that's for another podcast. We start at the Roman Empire. Basically, there was Germania, the wild ones from the north. The Romans were a bit sus off, I think. And then a lot of other kings, and we start with the Napoleon fights.
Napoleon. Side note, I haven't got any clue of history. Especially not the German history, because I just had like the basic history classes in school, and I was in French class, and we learned so much about Louis XIV and which music he heard, and how big his castle was and so on. But we didn't learn so much about German history. Of course, we had like the Second World War, but really short, because we just had those golden 20s and the First World War, and then the school year ended too fast to speak about Second World War. And this is kind of horrifying to skip such a important history, but yeah, Bildung ist Macht. Education is power.
That's why we thought we used this episode to just give like a brief look on how Germany is how it is today, how it got unified, because Austrians are involved in the story, and that's also explaining the weird parallels between these two countries.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got inspired by our visit in Vienna, and we wanted to share it.
Our first plan was to record this episode in Vienna, but there came some things in between.
Let me say it straight. A beer was spilled over my laptop.
Oh, we have to cut this out.
Yeah, Jen, when was Napoleon? Which year, do you know?
Don't ask any... Really, that's embarrassing. I want to send out a picture of myself to the world where I'm well educated and know my facts about history, and you ask me questions about history, although I clarified that I don't have any clue about history.
Yeah, I just googled the exact dates.
Okay, nice.
Anyways, it starts in the 19th century, the beginning of the 19th century, where Napoleon was born. No.
And then it started.
No.
What started? Please classify.
So basically, at the beginning of the...
Leonie, we are no history experts.
Hi, Jen. Is any history expert listening to this? No. It's about giving a brief overview. So let me finish my sentence.
There's a 60% chance of a history person who knows history, like many of our friends, is involved into our podcast. So we have to be sharp.
Then let me finish my sentences.
What?
Then let me finish my sentences.
Okay, I'm gonna finish.
Back to the story. At the beginning of the 19th century, Napoleon tried to take over Germany. And at that time, Germany was basically hundreds, 20s, 200s of little empires with each their own rules and kings. And then Napoleon came and was trying to take it over, the German Roman Empire at the time.
That's boring. It's boring. I'm not in school class.
History is always boring when you start, but then you see the whole story, and then you can see how it influences people today, and then it's interesting, and that's what we need to get. So
okay, I give you a chance.
All right.
Explain.
At the beginning of the 19th century, Napoleon was trying to take over this territory, and all of the little empires were like, no, we don't want this. And it was the first time they fought for the same thing together against Napoleon. And eventually, yeah, they won, and a bunch of people were killed, as always in German history. But it was the first time they had the feeling of, oh, we're doing this together, While the people were fighting, they were like, yeah, flag, fights together against Napoleon.
What the fuck?
It was the normal people, like the normal people living and working on their farms and struggling to provide their families with potatoes.
Potatoes. Of course, potatoes.
And then at 1815, the monarchs just said, okay, now Napoleon just fucked up whole Europe. Everything's messed up. We need to find a solution here. We need to bring order back in the court here. And they sat down in Vienna.
Ooh, that's the Vienna Congress.
Yeah, the Vienna Congress. It was 1815, and there was an Austrian guy called Metternich.
Ooh, the champagne guy.
The champagne guy.
Oh, fuck, I'm into it.
Was in Vienna with a lot of other people that probably have their own wine or champagne now.
But wasn't this time Bismarck already the chancellor?
Oh no, Jan. Please close your mouth. That was 60 years later.
Okay. 60 years isn't that relevant.
It is.
Close call.
Listen.
Okay.
You are seeing the importance of history right here, right now in this podcast. Meta. Ebene.
I don't know if there's an English word for Streber.
Nerd.
Nerd? It's just nerd?
It's nerd.
No, that's not exactly what it means.
We'll put the translation in the episode description. And then you can Google the German word and then you can see the full picture. Back to the story, 1815 in Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the monarchs from all the different little empires in Germany, they sat together and decided, what are we going to do now? Obviously, they wanted monarchy, so they said, let's do a monarchy again.
Which castle did we saw the castle in Vienna?
Oh yeah, it's just a random building.
Oh, it's the no, it's not random. It's the Bundeskanzleramt today. Yeah, it's the government, okay. The chancellor's headquarters.
Okay, yeah. So they're still doing the same thing there today, which they did in 1815, which is basically, yeah, all the monarchs from all the different little empires in Germany, they sat together. They called it the German Federation. Founded by the champagne guy Metternich. Austria was basically the headquarters of this German Federation. They most of the time also gave the emperor for this German Federation. Basically, the people that fought together, like the actual people, they were still not really satisfied because they were the ones that were not in power but controlled by monarchy continuously. Mm-hmm. So that was the situation in the first half of the 19th century.
Yeah, I have to add a side note, a really qualified side note, because I looked up the Google Maps reviews from the headquarters of the Chancellor, and the first one is 1 star from 5, and the guy says, the building is magnificent. The only thing I find worrying are the people who work there. It has nothing to do with qualifications. So what the fuck? They're only people who say stuff about COVID vaccinations and some discriminating stuff.
Oh, okay. It seems like the people in this building are still not really liked by the people.
Yeah, as always.
But we'll leave that to interpretation. But back in the days, it actually went this far that Germany did a revolution. 1848, it failed, spoiler. Mm-hmm. But they basically did a revolution because they were still having this feeling of we are one, we are Germans, but we are all split up in these different empires. Yeah. We fought together for this territory, but now we're still oppressed by the monarchy. We want freedom, we want unity, and we want what is the last?
Yeah, wasn't there already at this time democracies?
I don't know, but it was the time of revolutions. There were a lot of revolutions during that time in Europe.
Do you think that students in 100 years would speak about revolutions in our times?
Hence, I can imagine that the climate change will, if it further escalates, there will be further social revolts. Like you can already see the people that glue themselves on the street, for example. But the definition of a revolution is a radical change of the current political and societal situation. So actually, the revolution in Germany was debatably a revolution because they did a revolution, but actually by trying to organize a new system, they failed because they were in themselves not quite sure where they wanted to go. And also the monarchs, they were just going quiet. So eventually the people just didn't have the power anymore, and it slowed down again, and the monarchs could take control again. So as per definition, it was not really a revolution, but it was Germany trying to unite themselves and unite themselves to be democratic. So it was always the drive for unity was also the drive for democracy. They basically went hand in hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not qualified to say anything about this.
And then the next part was Bismarck. Bismarck is a really known name in the German history because he knew that the monarchs, they want to be monarchs, they want to be in power and all of that. He was a monarch himself. Not really, but he was from the society, like from the rich society, and he was smart, and he knew, okay, I just have to talk to all these monarchs and convince them that they will have an advantage when Germany is unified. So he went to quite some of them and said, oh, what do you want? Oh, you want some money? You will get a castle. Yeah, you will get a castle. Or another one wanted this, and he was like, okay, let me give you this. And then he was like, okay, but the Germans, they're not really like connecting with each other. What makes people connect, especially what makes brothers, men connect, fighting with each other against other countries.
But that's smart.
That's what united them before when they fought against Napoleon.
Against whom?
The first war was the German-Denmark War. Then there was a war against Austria. And there's always this question of the Great German Solution, which means Germany with Austria, or the Small German Solution, which is Germany without Austria. Because, Austria had a lot of power, and it was a question of, do we want to let them in and leave a lot of decisions to them? Or Bismarck, I guess the solution was fighting against Austria, so there must be some disagreement there. I don't quite remember it, so let me not speak on it. And then they fought against the French, of course. They always fought against the French.
Leonie, I have to interrupt. We have to bring it in another way to the people, you know?
But now, this is the point.
Mm-hmm.
Germans were always...
Yeah, in your head, because you know the history, but for me, it's really hard to follow, you know?
The point that I'm trying to get across is basically Germans were united by fighting with each other, and they were never really united. Like, their heritage was always based on the little places where they came from, the little empires, and they knew the people in this little empire, and the unity only came by fighting with each other.
Isn't it always a thing? Is it a German thing that fighting connects people in a country? You always hear in the news when they're talking about Ukrainian war that the people there are way more united because of the war. I don't know, the doctor and the cashier at the supermarket are now on the same level because it's just surviving, you know?
Yeah, I guess the difference to Germany is that Bismarck did this strategically.
Yeah, safe.
Let's not get in the details. I think this is the most important revelation for now. Germany was split up in many, many different parts, and they were united through us.
But this split up setup is still there nowadays in the states of Germany.
this local feeling of that is where I come from. I come from this city, I come from this neighborhood, I come from this village, I come from the east, the west, I come from...
Yeah, it's like the same situation back in the days when it were like little empires.
Yeah.
Now everybody is like, I'm not from German, or I'm not a German, I'm from Hamburg and I'm a hamburger, lol.
Exactly. This thing of the Germans being confused about their unity, it's not ending. It's a very confusing identity already from the beginning. Then you have the First World War, then you have the Weimar Republic, where they do a first try of democracy. And after the First World War, everyone was crushed because Germany lost, and like everyone was pissed at Germany, of course. And they had to pay a lot of money to other European countries, and the economy was shit. And then Hitler came and was like, I'm gonna fix everything for you, and finally you're gonna have an identity. So we are the best ones because we are born here. And actually he was Austrian. So again, Austrian guy leading the Germans to their identity in a very, very fucked up way this time. Of course, after that, what an even more confusing identity, because the maximum of unity was there, but a very toxic way of unity, like the most toxic way of unity probably in the world history. And it's split up in two parts. And Germany rebuilt, but in two different parts, and now we have today. So, like, was it ever one? That's the question I'm asking myself.
I have something controversial to say to this topic. In my opinion, you can say that there were certain points where Germans were united and connected, and those points were always like the darkest points. That was why Hitler was so dangerous for Germany, because he had this propaganda of uniting Germany. But the human mankind is such an asshole. We always need those negative parts in our histories. It's always the same. I wouldn't say that it's possible to be peaceful, you know, because people have this craving for a national identity. And this is why everything sucks, or it doesn't have to be a national identity. You can also have an identity within religious ideology and so on.
I just, by accident, read this book in the library today about the German flag. And this book was written in the Weimar Republic, like between the First and the Second World War, when the flag was changed from black, red and white, which was in the past, and also the flag that the Nazis used again, to black, red and yellow, what it is today. And in this time there was a lot of discussion around it.
But wasn't at this time this bird inside of the flag?
Exactly.
The eagle.
Yeah, exactly. This book that I read today was known for having a very scientific approach. Germans love it, of course, the science of looking at what these colors actually mean in the whole history. I didn't read the whole book because it was very dry, but I did read a nice sentence at the end about what a flag means in a country, kind of also relating to what we still see. I mean, Ukrainian flag, what an example of how meaningful the flag is. And it basically says it's very, very important to only have one flag, because it is the sign of unity of the common people. And if you wear the same colors and fight under the same banner, you are more willing to support each other in, danger, and to defend each other, to be there for each other, to be one unity. And we must do everything to stand together and not shrink from any sacrifice, and not even the sacrifice of honorable memories. It sounds a bit weird in English. It sounds like honorable. It sounds like something you're proud of. But in German, ehrwürdig, it means more like being honorable towards history, like being humble towards history.
Ehrwürdig means like you have the privilege, you get the privilege of being able to understand history.
Yeah, exactly. Seeing that Germany was always split up in a lot of different identities, why can it be a country for more identities, even if they don't have the memory of generations living here, but if it's a new identity that is coming onto these grounds and building their families here now for many years, why can't they also be part under this flag, remembering together and standing together for unity and democracy and freedom? That's what I always advocating for, that we use the German identity not to exclude and like be arrogant about it like the Nazis did it, but to actually open it up to let's collect more identities. Obviously it gets more complicated by this.
Yeah, it's like when you want to understand people, you have to look at the parents. When you want to understand countries, you have to look at the history of the country, and then everything becomes clear, and then you can look into the future and know where, in which direction it goes. Because most of the events which are happening today already happened in the past, but in another way.
Yeah.
And then you can see the consequences of the circumstances. So when there's war, everybody thinks like, oh, it's another type of war because you use cyber and different weapons and everything is high technology. But in the end, nothing is different than back in the days in a war. It's the same ideology of getting into other people's life and disturbing them in their serenity.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, this was our second episode of German Thinking.
It's another sign for you to be aware of history, guys, because history is influencing us just like our parents are influencing us. We don't want to be them, but we are like them sometimes, a lot of the times, because that's how we learned to cope in this society. So listen to your history teacher, if it's a good one. If it's not a good one, then educate yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a privilege to have a history teacher.
Oh, good point.
Who can say his own thoughts as well. Because when you look at China or Russia, I wouldn't...
If we look at other countries in the world.
I don't believe that they are neutral history teachers.
Yeah.
But in Germany, it's also complicated. There are also teachers in the system which who are propaganding fake news.
Yeah.
Example given, Bernd Höcke.
Yeah, literally. A very right-winged politician in Germany was a history teacher. So it is very important to learn about history through conversations and form your own opinion. And please research yourself.
Oh, we can recommend some channels like Mr. Wissen to Go. It's like Mr. Knowledge to Go. And I think you can put some English subtitles on.
If you are not from Germany, maybe educate yourself about the history of your country.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't done it yet, because I'm sure it will provide some interesting learnings about your own identity and how you behave and how the society around you is behaving.
Yeah, this is an advantage to know your history and to know your history in the setup you're surrounded by. And it's not only watching the news of the current political topics, it's as well the history, and maybe the history is more important than the current situation.
Because you already can see what the result is of certain actions.
I was always saying, okay, the history isn't interesting for me. I want to look into the future. That's why I'm going into the physics course. But there is such a link from the history to the future. Current time is just 1 minute before was the past and 1 minute after was the future. And the minute before influenced the future always. When I'm getting my wine glass in my mouth, I had 1 second before the decision of doing it. So history always influences the future.
You drinking wine in the past, knowing that if you put up your wine glass, you drink wine.
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective. Now it's history. You know?
And I think with this, we can settle on another groundstone of German thinking, which is the understanding of history.
Is it a groundstone? I think there are too many people in this country who are not informed about history.
But I heard from friends and colleagues from other countries that Germans are really obsessed with history.
I don't know. It's just, I think, a subjective thinking.
Okay.
I think there's a reason why there are still Nazis in this country.
Yeah, which is no education.
No education, ignoring pasts.
Whoa, that's a whole nother episode. That's more the history of the 19th century, I would say. Of the 20th century. And this episode was more focused on the 19th century.
Yeah.
History is a groundstone of every country.
So it's so funny. You can, such current topics you can explain with history. Like in France, that they have this really, really intense strike culture. You can redirect it to the revolution, and that the people are always fighting, and they're knowing that they have power when they go on demonstrations and so on.
But now it's time to go to sleep or to go on to the next task that you're doing in your day. Thanks again for taking the time to listen, educating yourself, educating yourself is your own responsibility, but now you got an opinion from us that you can get inspired by, whatever.
And please don't take us too serious. We don't want to be this boring history teacher.
Okay, Jan, last words.
Cringe.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.